Game dev tutorials are cooking your brain, not because tutorials are evil, but because they trick you. They trick you into thinking you're learning while you're just sitting there copying code like a zombie. And the reason why I know this is because I was a tutorial zombie for years myself, before I finally realized that everything I knew about learning was wrong. So before we dive deeper into how building and struggling made me finally release my first game, you need to understand why tutorials are a trap. And please focus on this. This is what no one else talks about, and it completely changed everything for me. So right now you have this mindset that you're actually learning from game development tutorials, and you're thinking that you're going to retain all the information that you watch in the tutorials. And you might think that you're an exception because you're following along and you're not just watching. You actually type in the code in on your own screen, but it still applies to you because there's no critical thinking. So let me give you an example to better visualize how we actually learn. And this is really interesting because it applies to everything in life, not just game development. You can apply this to everything. Let's say I really wanted to learn how to play the piano. I open up YouTube, I click the search bar, and I type how to play the piano. And I watch a 5-hour video on how to play the piano. I could be taking notes, I could be doing the exact thing that the instructor on YouTube tells me to do. And I can even follow along and play a full song. And I can feel like I'm actually learning the piano. I can feel like I can play this full song myself. But then after a hard day of like watching 5 hours of a piano tutorial, I go to bed. The next day when I wake up, I want to play for my mom. I want to play a piano song for my mom. I think that I know the song because yesterday I could play the song, I could follow along, sure. For the case of the example, let's say that you remembered how to read notes as well. You open up a song, you open up the notes, but you can barely do anything. Your brain is just completely smooth. You can't recall anything. Maybe you can press like a few keys, but it's nowhere near a full song. And this is what happens when you watch tutorials as well. You're watching the tutorial, let's say you're learning how to make a player moment. You're following along, you can recognize a lot of the things, you can follow along, you can nod your head thinking, okay, this makes sense, I can remember this, I understand this, right? But then the next day, when you close down the tutorial, you try to replicate it from memory, you can't do anything. Your brain is just completely smooth because you didn't actually understand the thing. And the reason why it's smooth is because tutorials is a form of passive learning. And passive learning, it's horrible to remember things. And especially in game development where it's all about solving problems. If you're going to make the player movement, the issue is first, you need input. Okay, that's an issue. The second issue is that you need to actually move the player. You need to get the rigid body from the player. You need to like change your physics. Game development is all about solving problems. And you can't remember problem solving. Passive learning is horrible to retain information, whilst active learning, which is what I preach, it's when you build, you struggle with things, and you restrict your information. You don't watch a tutorial. You actually just go out and try. That's when you build your problem solving skill, and that's when you're actually going to retain the information. What happened to me, for example, is that I watched these full project tutorials where I would make this like full 2D RPG game. Let's say we made like the player movement script. I didn't learn how to make the player movement script. I just followed along and I copied the code. I don't know how to make a player movement script after watching this. But this chapter of the video is called the passive learning trap. And you might think, okay, Kevin, why is this a trap? It makes no sense. Why are you calling this a trap? The reason it's a trap is because that in multiple studies, and you can also feel this yourself if you watched tutorials before, you're going to have a higher confidence than your actual competence. And this is a term that they use in research, is called the illusion of competence. So the illusion of competence is what happens when you just watch game dev tutorials. You feel confident because you can follow along all these things like, oh yeah, bro, I'm actually coding, I'm coding these things. But your brain is not going to retain 99.9% of this information. So your confidence is there, your learning is like below. It's below the fucking camera, guys. It's below the camera. Your learning is basically zero. And it's also going to feel easy. It's going to feel productive for you because your brain rewards you with this molecule called dopamine, where it's basically the reward hormone in our brain. So what dopamine does is that it makes you feel good. It's like basically the motivation hormone. You get this motivation, you get this like reward. Your brain gives you the reward because you're tricking your brain into thinking that you're learning. So it feels good because you think yourself that you're learning. You're tricking your own brain. And this is called the passive learning trap. To connect all the dots and make it simple for you, what we talked about where you're passively watching, you get the illusion of competence, and you feel like you're understanding the thing, but you can't thoroughly use it. That's what we call recognition. On the other side, we have understanding, where you're going to be able to use the thing. You're going to explain to me thoroughly what this thing is, and you're going to be able to use this thing in multiple scenarios because you thoroughly understand how it works. And now this is the interesting part. This is going to be the more practical part of the video. To build understanding, we need two different things. We need feedback and we also need struggle. And the thing with tutorials, as you probably guessed, it gives you none of those. You don't get any feedback because you're just following instructions. You're not actually seeing the good and bad results yourself. And now you might sit there and think, well, I can see if it works or not. Kevin, you're completely wrong. I can actually see the result. The thing is that seeing the result of an instruction where you're just typing it in on your own like computer is so low effort. You didn't struggle, you didn't spend any effort. So they're kind of correlated, what we talked about with feedback and struggle. And since you didn't spend any effort, you didn't struggle with the thing, you're not going to have this like pain and win in your body. You're not going to have this like this good feeling when something works and the bad feeling when something doesn't work. So even you watching like if it works or not in the game engine after following the instructions, the tutorials, right? You're not going to feel bad when something doesn't work, which in tutorials, 99% of cases things work, but in real life it's like 50. So also that's kind of flawed, but and also when things work, you don't get feedback from that either because you didn't actually spend effort on this. You just follow the instructions. So you're not going to feel good. And this like feel good and feel bad is very important for your body to like label this as important information that you're actually going to remember. And the second thing to actually retain information, which we talked about, we're going to be effort, which we can also call struggle. And this is basically where your brain, it needs to think, oh, holy shit, this is like super hard. I don't want to spend like so much brain power like figuring out this solution in the future. So I'm just going to remember information about this thing so that I don't have to like think and spend so much effort on this in the future. Because your brain is obviously not trying to expend energy. It's actually trying to be as lazy as possible. So when you actually struggle with something, you're labeling to the brain that this is going to require a lot of energy and this is important. You might encounter this problem in the future and your brain is going to like be lazy. It doesn't want to spend that much energy thinking about the solution in the future. So it's just going to remember like how the thing works. Let's say you're making a player movement script and you're going to get the input. Let's make it very simple. You're going to make the input so that you can in the future move the player. Okay. So you're a beginner, you don't know how to do this. So you need to think. You could just ask ChatGPT, or you could try and be like a caveman with no internet that tries to like figure it out yourself. If you do this, you just type like input dot okay, what makes sense out there? It's going to come up in your IDE, it's going to come up with a lot of suggestions with the intelligence, right? You just try some things. You try like, oh, input, that makes sense. Okay. Input dot like fucking keyboard or something, right? You just spend like so much time and so much effort trying to figure this like input thing out. And if you spend like so much time trying to just get the input instead of asking ChatGPT, instead of Googling, instead of going the easy way, you just on purpose spend a lot of effort on this thing. You spend like 15 minutes trying to like know when the player moves their fucking mouse, right? This is the level that I wanted to be at. This is how you actually remember information. This is how you should spend effort. So your brain is going to label this information as important and you're actually going to remember it. Because if you ask ChatGPT, how do I get like this player movement, it's going to send you like a big script that you're just going to copy over. It's going to be very easy for you. That's how you're actually going to learn. That's how you remember, because you aren't going to remember ChatGPT code. If your brain could remember ChatGPT code or things that ChatGPT said, you would be the smartest man alive. We would all have like giga brains, right? But that's unfortunately not how the world works. Maybe for the better. You're used to binge watching tutorials, being inside an algorithm, just like, oh, the next video, okay, I need to learn this, I'm going to watch this video. I want to learn this, so I'm going to watch this video. I have this problem, I'm going to watch this video. Oh, he suggests that I watch this video next. I'm going to click on that. You're inside of the algorithm. YouTube is not optimized to make you learn and for you to have results. YouTube is optimized to keep you watching. And this is like another big reason why tutorial hell, where it's basically where you watch tutorials as your main learning when you're a beginner. This is a big reason why tutorial hell is so big, because we're all on these platforms like YouTube, Udemy. We want these like quick solutions. We just want to follow along some shit and then just hope that the information just like is transferred into our brain. We just want the easiest thing. That's not how learning works. So you've been sold this lie that you can just watch a video and then you can learn. You've been sold this lie that if you just watch this video, if you just watch 5 hours more of like this advanced Unity tutorial, right? Then you're going to be good. Then you're going to be able to make your game. You've been sold this lie. You've been just inside the algorithm for so long. We are going to build, we're going to struggle, and that's how we are going to learn. We're going to escape the algorithm. Look at the incentives. What incentive does a YouTuber have that makes tutorials for you to release your game? Absolutely zero. They would lose money. They would lose viewers. They would lose ad revenue. They have literally no incentive. Literally zero. And also, I sell a course, and also I make game development videos. So who am I to speak about this? Well, I've set up my YouTube channel in a way that I'm actually profiting from you actually finishing and releasing your game. So let's say, for example, that you watch my videos, you enjoy them, you join Smartini, either free or you buy the full course. That's actually really good for me. I have something to talk about. I have something to show. I can like grow my course. I can use it as a testimonial. That's actually really good for me, right? Opposed to if I just keep you watching my videos, okay, I would maybe get some viewers and subscribers and likes. My incentive is for you to release your game. Buy my course, so that I can show that my course actually works to release games, not just like keep you stuck, right? While these other YouTubers and YouTube and all these algorithms, they profit from keeping you stuck in this loop. You watch it all, you feel like you're progressing. The illusion of competence is like a known thing in research. Illusion of competence, this is fucking psychology, right? You watch a tutorial, you feel progress, you have no real skill because you try to open a game engine, you can't do anything. You get anxiety, you feel bad because you can't do anything. You watch another tutorial to feel better. That's the loop you're in. That's a loop that YouTube wants you to be in. That's the loop that like Code Monkey and Brackies and all these other people, they have incentives to keep you in this loop, to give you anxiety that you can't do anything. That's their incentive. And also, I don't want to just ramble and not give you any practical advice and be like all these other YouTubers that just talks and talks, but they don't actually give you some actionable steps. So here's what you're going to do specifically so that you're going to learn game development, learn how to code so that you can actually release your first game. You can get better so that you can use AI when you are more intermediate and so on and so on. So to learn the initial code, what you're going to do is that you're going to follow my framework. This is what worked for me. This is how I released my first game. It's going to be to follow what I call the struggle, build, repeat framework. The struggle, build, repeat framework is basically that you're going to struggle with something that we kind of talked about before for around 10 to 15 minutes, maybe even more, 10 to 20 before you use Google. And no ChatGPT, no Google AI. Google, you're going to use Forms. You're going to use Stack Overflow. You're going to use Reddit because that's still going to give you some amount of struggle because it's not super easy, but you're still going to be able to find a solution. So it's like kind of in the middle. If you can figure something out after, let's say, around 15 minutes, then you use Google. But before that, you're just going to fully focus on trying to figure the thing out yourself. You're going to just try in your idea. You're going to try a bunch of shit. You're going to use a lot of debug.logs to like see values. You're just going to be like a scientist that's like figuring out the programming language for the first time. Like we have no Wi-Fi. You can literally turn off your Wi-Fi on your computer. That's where I want you to be. And I hear you asking, what are you going to build? Well, you're going to build small experiments. You're going to build very, very small experiments to begin with. And then you can scale them up to being like actual prototypes and experiences that people can play. Not full games yet, but just bigger experiments. So to give you an example, one experiment that you can make is like a movement system, a 2D movement system, okay? So you get the input, you move the player, you can make a collection system. So you move the player and then you can collect some gems. You can do a shooting system where you instantiate a bullet prefab, you get the mouse rotation, and you give the bullet a velocity, for example. Just very small, simple systems to begin with. Then you can scale that up. You can make a full like move and collect mini game, for example. That's what I have inside my course, where we're following the struggle, build, repeat framework while we are making this move and collect game. So I can guide you through the way. This is going to be the easiest, best way, so you also don't get stuck. It's inside of my free course. So the next time you're going to work on Unity, you can actually just open up the course for free and you can follow along. So it's the first link below if you want to check that out. But also, I want to say, don't focus on making like prototypes and experiments for too long. I want your focus to be just get over this phase, learn initial things, and then make your first game. At this stage, don't try to make anything impressive. Just struggle with something. Just learn some things that you think are relevant to your first game. Don't try to make anything impressive. Move very slowly, like we talked about. Spend 15 minutes trying to like read the input when the player like presses fucking space. Spend like a lot of time learning these things and actually understanding them. And then when you have the bare minimum knowledge to make your first game, that's when you should start making your first game straight away. And just to give you like a reference, inside of Smartini, for example, obviously it's guided, so it's a bit easier there than if you're doing it all alone. But you can still do it in 60 days or less. That's like to give you a reference. 60 days from today is a really good like deadline. Now, if you want to join the free community inside of Smartini and also have access to the start of the course completely for free, then click the first link below. It's on school.com, really cool platform. And yeah, we can talk inside of there. So check that out. Either way, hope this video helped you a ton. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.